At this point, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Dr. Alan Parkman is a Regents Professor Emeritus in Management at the University of New Mexico, where he taught microeconomics and macroeconomics to graduate business students for 30 years. He continues to teach economics in the Executive MBA program. He holds a PhD in economics from UCLA. I'm a Bruin, so I can go for that. And a law degree from the University of New Mexico. His articles have appeared in numerous journals, including the American Economic Review, the Review of Economics and Statistics, Family Law. During 1981-82, he was a senior staff economist on the President's Council of Economic Advisors in Washington, D.C. I think Professor Parkman's going to concentrate on the minimum wage, which of course has been in the papers, and we had the ballot initiative here in Albuquerque a little while ago. At this point, Dr. Parkman.
Stuff up here. Thank you very much for coming. It looks like a great house. Let me just put this over here for a second.
I think you may need to use the mic.
You know what? I'm sort of used to just talking loud. You can hear me, right? In the back? Sure. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate the opportunity to be sort of a lead-off hitter. One of the things I always find important when we talk about economics, understand what we're talking about. As field of study is certainly, like Caleb was talking about a $16 trillion deficit. People expect economists to have some of those kind of numbers at their fingertips, to have an immediate grasp of what the most recent unemployment figures are, etc. But let's step back for a second and understand what the field is all about. The field is all about the idea of scarcity. You live in a world of scarcity. People have to make choices. We have to make choices as individuals. We have to make choices as societies. And as a consequence, and we want to make the best decisions. And we want to use society's scarce resources in the most efficient manner. And that really deals very closely with the relationship between the decisions we make as individuals and markets and the decisions to some extent that are made for us in the area of government. And so, again, the whole idea of economics is this idea of people trying to make themselves as well off as they can be relative to their constraints. And the constraints are clearly time. You could be somewhere else right now. Income, most of us never have enough of it. And maybe to some extent our limited skills. I might say, it's peripheral to the discussion here today, but bear in mind the whole idea of self-interest. Which the word greed is thrown out there as an ugly word. But the bottom line to bear in mind is, and I get criticized this from my contemporaries, as if economists advocate self-interest, when the reality is what economists observe all the time is the fact that people make decisions based on their self-interest, and often, particularly in the political arena, to naively assume decisions are based on altruism is more often than not going to mislead you in terms of what the motivations really were. And yet at the same time, be very careful as you explore economics to understand the relevance of self-interest. That's quite different from a narrowly focused egocentric perspective. As I mentioned to my students at UNM, where I continue to teach, is, hey, keeping my wife happy is the most self-interested thing I do all the time. Not being a son of a bitch to my students and trying to encourage them, and yet at the same time telling them their standards is in my self-interest in terms of my self-esteem. And so the idea that greed or self-interest is horrible, and that the lovable people in the world are the people who espouse, giving other people's money away, are more attractive people. Be very careful. As I approach this and talking to Caleb, I had an op-ed piece, and I probably should have brought some copies of it with me. 2 weeks ago, I had an op-ed piece in the Albuquerque Journal on the minimum wage, and I think it's a really good maybe example. We've talked about the deficit, and in questions and answers we can go back to those kind of topics, which are very, very critical and very, very relevant. But I think as an example of looking at how you can use an economic framework to better understand the dynamics of actions that government might take. the minimum wage here in Albuquerque is a good example of perverse incentives. You create an environment where you think you're going to accomplish one goal, and the reality is you accomplish exactly the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. So let's talk a little bit about the minimum wage, and we could use that as a way of looking at the dynamics of an economic process. You know, again, in terms of trying to make this into a little bit of a dialogue, even though we talk about the minimum wage, the idea of the minimum wage right is to do what? What group are you trying to benefit? Low-income workers, and often we put rose-colored glasses on, right? But what are probably some of the characteristics of low-income workers? How much education they probably have? Probably not a lot in some cases. What about language proficiencies? And regrettably, you touch on things that people maybe don't want to touch on. What about family situations? I mean, I went down and testified earlier on in this process down at City Hall, and what I heard again and again and again is references to particularly to like single moms and their kids, and the economic problems they face, which are unequivocal. But on the other hand, are they often attractive employees? All of us who are parents, do our kids get sick? Do your kids ever get sick? Sure, your kids get sick. And if you got two parents, it's a challenge. If you got one parent, what about getting to work? You gonna get to work? No. So, I mean, you sit there and you talk about these groups with less education, less maybe language proficiency, you know, English versus Spanish or that kind of thing, people that have a disruptive family situation at home, and you want to help them. And then the question is whether the minimum wage is going to do that. If I could use this board and you can see it, and I talk as loud as I usually talk. Let's think about a labor market in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for people who work in, let's say, fast food restaurants. And some of you are undoubtedly already aware of this lovely stuff we always do in economics. We love graphs. Love graphs. You know, and I think it terrifies a lot of people when they get exposed to it. They like those history classes. I like history too. You know, it's great words, and it's just words, and you read them and you understand them. And then along comes an economist and says, let me show you a graph. And here we have a graph. Let's talk about this is fast food workers. Okay, so this is the market for fast food workers. Over here we have the wage, and over here we're going to have workers. And let's start out with the idea that we go out there and look at the market. We can say, hey, what's the typical wage? What's the typical wage these people are receiving? And let's say it's $7. And let's say there's about 1,000 workers working. So here's wages on this axis, workers on that axis. What we're saying is, when we look at the market, look at the data. We have some books here with some data about the economy in New Mexico. We find that the typical fast food worker is making $7, and there's about 1,000 of them that are out there working. So let's think about that idea of living in a world of scarcity with people trying to make decisions. There's two interacting forces here. One, of course, is the employers. The other one, of course, is the employees. Let's take a look at the employers first. So here's the wages is $7. What's going to happen in the eyes of the employers, to make it extreme, if wages were to go to $10? Well, they would lay off some workers. If they had flexible hours, right, they might reduce the hours. They might try to replace with capital equipment. You know, one of the great entrepreneurs in this town is the owners of the Frontier and Golden Pride. And the innovations they do all the time in terms, I go to Golden Pride over there in Lomas, pretty close here, and they have little headsets now. There's ways you can use capital equipment to replace workers. So the reality would be, if the wage were to increase from $7 to $10, then what would happen would be that the demand curve would react in a way where fewer workers would be hired. So if you think about, here we were at 1,000 to $7. If we're up here at $10, then it's going to be 900, 800, something like that. But on the other hand, what would happen if wages went down? What would happen if wages went down? What would the employers do? Is, you know, you like to give customer service, if you have a few more people there to clean up the tables and whatever. So if the wages were to go down, you would hire more workers, okay? And I think a lot of you, you know, have economics classes of your life, and this is pretty elementary, but this is what we call a demand curve. Let's just call it demand. The idea being that, again, back to that whole idea of economics, is this idea of self-interest by decision makers. I am an employer. I want to make a profit. I don't want to give people any more than I have to give them, but on the other hand, I can't give them too little or they won't work for me. If the wage goes up, I've got to economize on the number of workers I have. If the wage goes down, that encourages me to hire more workers. Now, on the other hand, here we are, and let's take a look at the employees. Certainly, if the wage were to go up, certain individuals might actually want to work more hours, but also particularly for these kind of jobs. The evidence is that a lot of the people who work at a McDonald's or a Wendy's, even at the Frontier, often are people that what? Students, they're working part-time, whatever, and at $7, well, it's sort of worth the effort. But gee whiz, if the wage were to go to $10 an hour in fast food, a lot of people who are in La Cueva High School or UNM or a place like that would say, hey, right, it is now worthwhile for me to go out and put more time and effort into working in a fast food restaurant. And up here, you would find more workers willing to work if the wages were higher. What happens if the wages were lower, though? You know, I mean, and again, you know, the whole idea in economics of trade-offs is that, sure, I'd like to have a better cell phone, I'd like to have this or that. You know, there's certain, yeah, clearly, there are, as the advocates have told us, many people, this is the core of their financial situation. But certainly the evidence is a lot of fast food workers do not come from impoverished families. They are people that, hey, if the wage is too low, then I have other things to do with my life. If the wages were high enough, hey, why not? Why not do this? So if wages were lower, then obviously fewer workers would be willing to work, and you'd have a relationship we can talk about as supply. And you know, this is, you know, other people will talk today about a lot of very relevant economic things. But here we're talking about fast food workers. But you know, this is really the core of economics is markets. And this is a typical market. And bear in mind, we're not talking about goods here. We're talking about workers, and we'll go on and extend this in a second. But the beauty of a market like this, as we observed in the initial situation, there was an observed wage, there was an observed number of workers, and the market was clearing. And then the reality was workers were hired as long as they were perceived to be more valuable than the wage. And they were willing to work as long as the wage exceeded whatever their best other alternative was. And so in terms of society's scarce resources, you've encouraged the most efficient transactions that can occur. So here we have just a typical supply and demand, but now we have a situation where what? In Albuquerque and many other places, they come along and say, this is just not an acceptable wage. And as a consequence, you go back to the group we talked about. People that are less educated, people who have limited language skills, and they just can't live on $7 an hour. So you come and it says Albuquerque enacted January 1 of this year, you impose a minimum wage. And so in our sort of discussion, let me check my notes to make sure I'm not forgetting something I want to talk about along the way there. Here we were in what we would describe as equilibrium. The people who wanted jobs got jobs. The employers who looked for workers got workers. But now we have a situation, so we had this 1,000 we talked about initially. But what has happened now, right? And I think we got some of just this before. When the minimum wage goes up, what happens? What do the employers do? They lay people off. But, you know, part of it is that, you know, most fast food workers don't work 8-hour shifts. You know, just like a lot of the jobs most of us have had, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, is you have shifts, you know, and probably at $7 an hour, it's worthwhile, right? There's a certain time period during the day which things aren't real busy, but at $7 an hour, you keep it a couple extra workers around. When the wages go up, you decide, well, those are time periods when we don't need as many workers. You do whatever you can. The real critical thing on a municipal minimum wage. How many cities in the United States have a municipal minimum wage? Probably not a fair question, right? Or let's put it another way. There is a federal minimum wage, right? Yes. There's state minimum wages in most states. But are municipal minimum wages very common? No. And the primary reason why is right here. Because if the minimum wage goes up in the United States relative to Canada or Mexico, people in Canada and Mexico might want to come in the United States to take advantage of it. But is that easy to do? And if New Mexico puts a higher minimum wage than Arizona, people from Arizona might want to do what? Move to New Mexico, but well, you know, from Phoenix to Albuquerque to make an extra $1 an hour, who cares? Well, what about $8.50 in Albuquerque and $7 in Rio Rancho? Is it, in fact, take Cottonwood Mall. Is it really hard if you're working at a Wendy's in Rio Rancho where you're getting $7 an hour? Is it really hard to commute to a Wendy's in Cottonwood Mall where you can get $8.50? So the real problem with a municipal, I do a typical thing I do in economics, lovely 45-degree lines. But when you're talking about a federal minimum wage, the supply curve is pretty steep, because it goes up. You know, people don't come from Canada, they don't come from Mexico. You know, if on the margin, some people say, hey, I can make more, I'll work a little bit more. But boy, you move from there to a municipal one, and this supply curve gets real flat, because there's Albuquerque, but then there's the county, right? There's some discussion about the county. Well, what is the minimum wage in the county? It's certainly not $8.50. And it's certainly not $8.50 in Las Lunas, Valencia County, Sandoval County, whatever. So the supply here could be relatively responsive. So now you find yourself in a situation where employers have cut back somehow. And now that the minimum wage has gone up, even within Albuquerque, additional workers now find it attractive at $8.50, but more importantly, workers from outside Albuquerque find the $8.50 particularly attractive. And now you end up, I'll throw some numbers here. Let's just say this is 900, is how many are now being demanded. And just to keep it simple, over here is 1,100 want to do it. So we have a gap right here. We have a gap right there. And you know, highly sophisticated term, what could we call that gap? You could call it a surplus, right? A very sophisticated term. Another way of talking about it might be unemployment. Okay? You know, I mean, if there now is, before, and I don't mean to be simplistic, you bear with me on this. I'm not saying there's mathematical precision here, but basically, you know, and we're in a deep recession now, and we can talk about that later. But under normal circumstances, the market sort of clears, and in and of itself, the market is not a cause of unemployment. When you artificially increase the wage, it results in unemployment. And the problem is thinking back to how we described situations before. And I don't mean to over-dramatize this, but let's say you're talking about kids from the Heights who have access to a family car, would like the extra money for a better cell phone or better vacation or better clothes. And you have people who have less education, maybe rely on the bus to get to work, and sometimes they miss the bus and whatever. You have a variety of people out there, some of whom are attractive employees, they show up on time, they're polite, etc. And there's other people that have disrupted family situations, they don't have a lot of education, so you got to maybe train them more. Now you have a gap here, and given that gap, who are you going to hire? the better educated people, the people with the better language skills, and particularly what used to upset me at city council meetings, with due respect, a single mom with kids is about as far down the list as you can imagine. You don't hire them initially or whatever. And so the tragedy of a municipal minimum wage is the fact that it is more likely than not to adversely affect exactly the people you want to help. Because with an abundance of labor available, particularly, I mean, I mean to emphasize, because back to my original question, Madison, Wisconsin, Santa Fe, Albuquerque, San Francisco, I think right now those are the only 4 cities in the country, mainly because it has been shown that these are disasters. And yet if you listen to the debate that occurred in Albuquerque, it really never came up. It was just this rose-colored glasses of everyone who's in need will now make higher wages. And the key thing about this whole process is that what? Some people are clearly better off. No doubt about it. But more likely than not, they're not going to be the people you wanted to help. And of course, the key thing to sort of tie this together, and I'm thinking as I was driving over here this morning, between the minimum wage in Albuquerque and they just rescinded a law in Santa Fe that required all city projects to be done by union workers. And these are both parallel situations where you say, and you've heard this before, right? New Mexico has too few well-paying jobs. So what we'll do is we will artificially create high-paying jobs as if we don't live in a world of scarcity. Because what you've done here is you've created some high-paying jobs. You've created jobs that used to pay $7 an hour. Now they pay $50. But not everybody got one of those jobs. You know, the same thing, Santa Fe finally wised up and realized, sure, you pay union workers more, which means you have less money to spend on every other municipal service. You have fewer projects you can pursue. The union workers who get jobs are happy, they get higher wages, but not everybody else. So, I think not for you to study free market economics. What is the solution to the problem of low wage workers?
Free markets.
Well, free markets in particularly what aspect?
More prosperity, more employment.
Okay, and part of that would be what? In terms of, if you just talked about some of the problems with disruptive family situations, limited education, limited language ability, what's obviously the mirror image of those?
Training.
More training, more education, better language skills. I mean, basically, the solution to the problem of people who do not have high incomes is they're not perceived to be very productive. You know, it's not the polite thing to say, but that's, I mean, UNM paid me handsomely. I was embarrassed sometimes how much they paid me. But they paid me because of a piece of paper on the wall in my office at home. And that's great. I appreciate the living hell out of it. But on the other hand, is to say if you are not perceived to be very productive, then you're not going to command a very high wage. And so the key to higher wages is more productivity. I might say, in contrast to minimum wages, you know, in its own way, these are uncomfortable somewhat, but the earned income tax credit is a fabulous thing in terms of creating incentives for people. If you do work, then you get additional funding by the tax system. Those kind of programs that encourage people. But again, if anything, one of the tragedies is not only does this adversely affect the most disadvantaged, but it gives them the wrong signal. It's just like, hey, the government, here I am. I dropped out of high school, here I am, and the government miraculously is going to make me better off. You know, without telling them, I'm sorry, the way you are going to be better off if you acquire the skills and experience and training that is going to warrant higher compensation later. I meant this to be a lot more of a dialogue, guys, I'm sorry.
Should we open up the questions?
Oh, go for it. You know, because I have a bad habit of pressing a button and off I go.
We can open up the questions. Please no rambling speeches or discourses.
Yeah, pretend you're not the U.S. Senate.
And students, you guys all have priorities, so go ahead.
I think it's almost first, and ma'am,
Your model needs to be modified by the realities of life.
okay.
That other employer. That employer for 99 weeks will allow you to sit home on your butt and do nothing for $2,000 a month. Which, by the way, if you assume a 40-hour week, 4.3 weeks per month, that's $11.63 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Above your scale even.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this other employer who is wiping out, the realities of incentive to have a job.
Okay, I mean, you're talking about unemployment compensation or what? Yeah. No.
Call it what you will.
You know, I'll give you an answer on that one, which is more broad. A number of my friends are very, very liberal. The deficit is the answer, etc. And one of my rebuttals has been, as an economist, and it wasn't part of my bio, but I ran for Congress in 1988 as the Libertarian candidate here in Albuquerque, is that what I would do in a recession is all I would do is unemployment compensation with a declining amount. Okay? And it's insurance. I mean, you pay for it through your work, and it's not an ideal state, but I think in a society, one of the things for me as a libertarian was good is the government can serve a role for things that markets cannot do. And some of you have heard that word moral hazard. Heard the word moral hazard? Wonderful concept. We've seen a lot of it the last 5 or 6 years. Moral hazard is what? As soon as you have insurance, it increases the likelihood you'll do exactly what you're insured against. They're too big to fail banks. Okay, so one of the problems with unemployment compensation is that it's moral hazard. If you could have private unemployment compensation, as soon as I bought unemployment compensation, what would I have a tendency to do? Stop working. So the government has to provide it because the market wouldn't provide it, but you'd have to have a declining amount to discourage people from sitting on their asses when they're actually.
And there's very few people who can't flip burgers, let's face it.
I'm sorry?
Very few people who can't flip burgers and fryer.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think is unemployment, we may disagree on that, but I think unemployment compensation I can live with. What I can't live with is tarps and stimulus packages that go across the country creating winners and losers.
You're not talking about publicly funded, you're talking privately funded. So publicly funded unemployment is.
Let's go on to the next.
Ma'am?
No, I was just wondering, wouldn't it be faster, easier, and clearer if you were talking to an individual who knows little or nothing about free market economics to simply say, when the wage goes up, unofficially, you have more people, because the employer is laying off the non-productive, you have more people vying for those jobs. So you have a tremendous volatile situation. He's not going to hire everybody. So you have more people applying for a job when the wage goes up, and he's not going to hire everybody. Is that clear to a person not?
Well, I mean, it's clear to you and me, but I mean, I tell you, go down to city council, listen to the debate on minimum wages, and it was like everyone was going to get the higher wage. And people, again, fundamentally, you're absolutely right, is one thing about this conference, is this idea of getting a comfortable sense of supply and demand. Because you can't, this is Mother Nature. You cannot defy Mother Nature. And Mother Nature consists of demand curves that respond to higher wages by hiring fewer workers. And people don't want to believe that.
Well, I'm just trying to think of a way to reach legislators who insist upon minimum wage. I'm trying to think of an easy way to show them that the idea is wrong. So that was the reason for my question.
It's amazing to me to hear the debate elsewhere about it. You can have your cake and eat it too. And also, it's been talked about the idea too that they're talking about this with respect to the federal government, is that if they increase the minimum wage, it doesn't cost, some people will benefit, and it doesn't cost the federal government dollars. This thing right here, this did not cost the city of Albuquerque directly any money. In other words, some people benefited, and they would like to believe everybody benefited, but the bottom line didn't cost them a penny. On the other hand, the city of Albuquerque could have spent $1.50 per worker and subsidized them with tax money. That would have cost them money. But by artificially increasing the minimum wage, legislatures think they can benefit people without it costing the city any revenue. So it's really appealing politically to them, from a naive perspective.
But the thing is, may I continue, or do other people have to?
Let's go to why don't we go to the next question? Be preferable if we could just have questions.
Isn't the fundamental issue, though, that should be pointed out in the minimum wage structure, is that no matter what number you give it, it's still the minimum. And while it benefits some workers initially when it goes into effect, within a short period of time, they could.
I can hear so everybody else can too.
Yeah,
Questions?
I used to be a teacher, so that was too. Within a short period of time, all of the prices for everything go up. A specific example with minimum wage increase here in Albuquerque, and my husband and I own a small business, we have to raise the wages, even of people that aren't making minimum wage, because they all feel like, I don't want to be at minimum wage now, so we all go up. All of our vendors, all people we buy products from are having to do the same thing. So we have to raise prices, our vendors raise prices, the price of everything goes up. So now the minimum wage worker has the same buying power, no matter what number you give it. You can give it $100 an hour if you want to. But within a very short period of time, the price of everything goes up such that they're still at the minimum. So it doesn't really help anybody.
Yeah, no, certainly the cost has to be passed on. You know, businesses aren't altruistic.
If we all know that this is really detrimental to our economy anywhere, and you said it was natural, but it's not beneficial, why on earth would the leaders of our city want to put this, vote this in?
Yeah, I mean, I think they would like to believe this demand curve is just vertical. You know, and just step back, within the academic literature, 20 years ago, was a study between Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and I've done a lot of empirical research myself, but some scholars came up with an argument that Pennsylvania increased its minimum wage, and New Jersey did, and there was no effect in Pennsylvania. And the advocates come back, it's like trying to defy gravity. I'm sorry, this is the world we live in, but there's this empirical evidence from this one study that suggests, no, in Pennsylvania it did happen, so they really want to believe they can have their cake and eat it too. You can increase the wages and there will be no adverse effects on employment. It just isn't realistic. But they want to believe it, and I'm just saying, go to a city council meeting, or I guarantee you, if they have a debate up in Santa Fe, go up there, and there will be people come in there with their rose-colored glasses on and tell you how wonderful this is going to be for everybody. And the legislatures are going to say, 99% of the people who presented arguments here thought it was a great idea. We're elected officials. Because let's face it, the minimum wage passed here in Albuquerque by what? 2/3. 2/3 of the voters voted for it here. Now, as a legislator, you're going to go against that? You know, people want to believe, you know, there's a fairy godmother out there. What can you do about that? All you can do is try and educate your friends and say, wait a second. Wages go up artificially, surplus. Not only does it affect labor, but it affects the most disadvantaged workers. You know, and all you can do is take the message out to your friends and neighbors.
In the Daily Logo last week, they had an article that said that UNM was asking for $500,000 more to pay the minimum wage hike. How long will it take for the negative effects of this minimum wage to actually be realized by the general public?
Well, I mean, you would assume it at UNM, because, you know, I know in the School of Management we had some wonderful work-study people, but it was a wonderful opportunity for many of them to study. Is that you know, UNM made that statement, I agree, is, oh, we're going to keep the same number of workers and just pay them $1.50 more or whatever. You know, it used to be $7.25 instead of my $7. We're going to pay them $1.25 more. No. What UNM is probably going to do next cycle is they're going to say, we got X amount of money for work-study students. Bam! We're going to cut 15% of the jobs. And yeah, again, it's back to the old story. The ones that get the $8.50, God damn it, it's great. But, you know, it's the only, you know, nobody's here old enough to remember when they used to have restraints on prices of gasoline back in the 70s. God, it was really great to get a low price of gasoline if you could get the gasoline at all.
5 hours a week.
Yeah, wait for it. So, I mean, you know, that's a good comment. And UNM acted as if, you know, the deity defined how many work-study jobs they had, and they're going to have to pay them $1.25 more. The bottom line is, if they have a finite amount of money, they'll just next cycle cut back on how many work-study students that they do, and it's exactly the repercussions that we would expect.
I have a daughter who is 18. everybody who had raises went down to minimum wage. They reduced hours, they reduced staff, they're doing it at UNM, they're doing it in the city. So here's somebody that's your peer who's worked for 3 years, tried to build up some seniority, and this is what happened to her. And she's like, they pushed her down the ladder.
Okay.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks. Okay, now that Dr. Parkman reminded me to check my notes, I had a few other announcements to make. We're going to have a raffle, and I should have already passed it along. This Lucky Irish hat that I got at Park City for $2 the other day. If you could just put your name, I guess first name and last initial, probably should do it. Or you can put your last name like on this on Post-it notes, and we're going to have a raffle for some gift certificates for the Monroes and movie tickets and a couple other things that people have passed along. So I'm going to start this passing the hat around here, and just for the students, you can just put your names on the yellow Post-it notes, please. There's also water bottles in the back if you guys are thirsty. And I neglected to, well, I was remiss in not introducing all our great homeschool students and their parents that are in attendance. Sorry about that. But we've got quite a few homeschoolers. Thanks a lot for coming. I also wanted to thank a few people. And I don't have my notes with me right now. Shar Tierney, Kathy Diaz of Monroe's. We couldn't do this without her. Getting the PSA announcements on the air. And you guys are all going to stay for lunch and have a great lunch from Monroe's. Everybody, go to Monroe's, please. And the Great Patriot is the only New Mexican restaurant I know that's named after a U.S. president, James Monroe. So, I don't know where the name came from. Marilyn Monroe. And Donald Gluck did a great job contacting a lot of people. Ben Sugg right here on the audio visual. All the people that included us in their email blast. Paul Gessing of the Rio Grande Foundation will be speaking later. Sylvia Bocour, Carla Sontag, thank you for putting us in your email blast. Everybody that came together for that. So hopefully I haven't forgotten anybody. Dan Hughes, thanks a lot. Dylan again, over Southwest Secondary, a great student activist. Why don't we play another video at this point? Let's do this one's about, it's kind of, sometimes you'll hear these masterminds talking, they're going to create something or build something, but it can take thousands of people to get something together, so it's not that easy. And I don't think any of us have ever thought about how many people in countries speaking different languages get together to make a pencil. And this is a great video by the legendary economist Milton Friedman.
Look at this lead pencil. There's not a single person in the world who could make this pencil. Remarkable statement? Not at all. The wood from which it's made, for all I know, comes from a tree that was cut down in the state of Washington. To cut down that tree, it took a saw. To make the saw, it took steel. To make the steel, it took iron ore. This black center, we call it lead, but it's really graphite, compressed graphite. I'm not sure where it comes from, but I think it comes from some mines in South America. This red top up here, the eraser, bit of rubber, probably comes from Malaya, where the rubber tree isn't even native. It was imported from South America by some businessmen with the help of the British government. This brass ferrule, I haven't the slightest idea where it came from, or the yellow paint or the paint that made the black lines, or the glue that holds it together. Literally thousands of people cooperated to make this pencil. People who don't speak the same language, who practice different religions, who might hate one another if they ever met. When you go down to a store and buy this pencil, you are in effect trading a few minutes of your time for a few seconds of the time of all those thousands of people. What brought them together and induced them to cooperate to make this pencil? There was no commissar sending out orders from some central office. It was a magic of the price system, the impersonal operation of prices that brought them together and got them to cooperate to make this pencil so that you could have it for a trifling sum. That is why the operation of the free market is so essential, not only to promote productive efficiency, but even more, to foster harmony and peace among the peoples of the world.
So that's one of my favorite videos. Next time you hear somebody say they can create something or they know how to do it, and some government official, bureaucrat is going to fix everything, well, there's a lot of people that have to come together usually to do it in with the price system. Okay, let's move on to our next speaker. She's going to cover a lot of topics, so hopefully you'll have some questions after she's done as well. Next speaker is Carla Sontag. Carla is the founder and president of the New Mexico Business Coalition, which represents hundreds of businesses and thousands of New Mexicans. She communicates with over 24,000 New Mexicans through NMBC emails on important issues. Through her leadership, the NMBC is recognized and often consulted by New Mexico legislators, public regulation commissioners, and the media. Carla has been appointed by Governor Martinez to serve on both the Small Business Friendly Task Force and the Unemployment Insurance Advisory Council. Much of Carla's work centers on economic freedom of individuals and businesses. A native New Mexican, Carla was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. A big hand for Carla Sontag, please.
Thank you very much. I've got stuff, because I've got prizes, and what I'm looking for is the youth in the audience to participate while we go through this stuff. And so, when I ask a question, if you get the answer right, you can come up and choose what you want. I've got carabiners that are really awesome. They've got flashlights on them. Or we've got these pins. You pull out the tab and they light up red. They've got like a flashlight inside. They're really cool. I'm doing that to bribe you to get involved. Can all of you hear me? Do I need a...
Use the mic.
Yeah, okay. My voice doesn't carry very well. Is this on? Now can you hear me?
Try the one in the back.
Okay. Oh.
Okay, this one's working.
Oh, good. Thanks. Okay. First, I want to tell you why I started the Business Coalition. As a native New Mexican, I've been here, obviously, all my life. I spent a few years in Germany when my husband was in the military. It was a great opportunity to see another country and see how it operates. I love to travel, but I love New Mexico. It is just a part of my soul. I think it's the greatest state in the nation. But we've got some problems. And I have become so frustrated with what's going on here that I literally started looking for a new place to move to. I couldn't stand the politics anymore. You can't hear me? Okay. When I realized that I was actually thinking about moving out of New Mexico, it broke my heart. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to leave this great state. I'm going to stay and fight. So I formed the New Mexico Business Coalition. And our philosophy is we're not going to change what happens in this state and in our nation until we change those people making decisions for us. That's our elected officials. So we have a different focus as a business coalition, and that's why we represent you, we represent business owners, we represent everybody in this state, because we've all got a vested interest in this. In the United States, we're under a democracy, right? And that means we have a lot of freedoms. When we talk about money, and I'm going to talk a lot about money today because it's an important issue in our lives. In a democracy, we make our way in life, right? We get a job, we earn our living, and that's how we pay our bills. What happens with socialism? How does that work? And this is for prize. Tell me about socialism. There's a definition up here, but I want to hear it from you. What is it?
It leads to the government making decisions for you and spreading the wealth around so everyone has the same amount. Everyone has to cooperate in their own way and be willing to work for the same amount as someone else, be willing to do the same thing as someone else.
Absolutely. Come get a prize. Thank you very much. Socialism, the basis of it is spreading the wealth. So if you've got somebody that wants to work really, really hard and make a lot of money in a socialistic government, that's really great. But what the government is going to do is take that from you and give it to the person that doesn't want to work. Because it's not fair for you to have more than them, right? That's why we live in a democracy. But that's what we've got to fight for, guys. Because I'm telling you, we are at risk. There are people that want to take away our democracy and create a socialistic government for us. How many of you think that's a good idea? Do you know that in every country in the world that's ever tried socialism, it has failed? The latest was Greece. If you watch that, socialism doesn't work. We don't need to experiment with it in the United States to know that. Right to work. What is that? I didn't give you a hint this time on the screen. What is right to work?
It's a union wanting people, it's the right for an employee not to have to join a union.
Exactly.
Will you repeat that, please?
Yes. Right to work means you can take a job, whether it is with a union company or not. But if it's a union company, you cannot be forced to join that union to take that job. It's the right to work. It's the right to choose if you're going to join the union or not. New Mexico is not a right to work state. If you find a job and that job is offered by a union company, you must join the union, whether you agree with it or not. Let me give you an example where this is not a good idea. My brother-in-law, who's retired military, took a part-time temporary job with UPS over the holidays. He had worked for them before, just wanted a little extra income and something to do. So he's going to be working for them, minimum wage, for about 45 days. UPS is a union company. He had to join the union. So for 45 days, they took money out of his check to go into the union coffers. He will never benefit from that. He'll never get anything out of it. He wasn't going to retire with the union. It's a 45-day job. Do you think that's right? Minimum wage, don't you think he wanted to keep those dues? It wasn't a lot of money that he was getting anyway. But we have, in New Mexico, every year a bill that's introduced to make this a right-to-work state, to give you the choice if you join the union or not. And we have protests. And New Mexico continues to not be a right-to-work state. And what that means is businesses that are looking for a place to locate, they typically want to go to a right-to-work state if they're non-union. So we're losing those businesses. We're losing jobs. When you guys graduate, you have less to choose from in New Mexico for what you're going to be doing. Let's talk about unions. Why were unions formed originally?
So that the people weren't underpaid to almost be slaves and be subject to the employers, so that they would all be paid equally.
Very good. Come get a prize.
Could you repeat?
Yes. Unions were formed many, many years ago to assure that workers got decent pay. It also was to assure that they got decent hours, decent conditions. There was a time when we didn't treat our workers real good. So the workers got together and said, you know what, you're not going to do this to us anymore. Does that happen today? Are we abusing our workers? Are we locking them in a facility and making them work 15 hours a day? No. But unions still exist, and that's okay. I'm not anti-union, but I will tell you I'm anti-nonsense. And we've got a lot of things going on in Santa Fe. I lobby a lot, and so I'm going to be telling you about what's happening in Santa Fe. We've got a lot of people that are elected officials that are controlled by the unions. The unions are the ones that got them elected. They have great influence in our state legislative process. So what that means is, if there is legislation going through and the unions don't like it, they'll come tell all their legislative friends, their senators and their representatives, and those people will kill that legislation. That's the reason we can't get right to work.
One of those fellows was carrying a Save the Middle Class RTW. How to save the middle class?
Could we keep the questions till the end of her discussion?
The graphic was there.
I think we save the middle class by saving the United States and allowing free enterprise to operate myself.
Really?
Okay, so back to Santa Fe. I want to tell you one quick story to tell you what kind of influence they have and what they're doing. We had some really good legislation going through to fix our workers' comp system. That system's been kind of broken since it was put into effect, mainly because of court decisions. So we spend a lot of time working on this. We introduce legislation. About a year ago, our governor, she appoints people that serve on the Workers' Comp Administration. 3 union, 3 business, or non-union. She had an opening for a union slot. She appointed somebody that was related to the unions, but unions didn't approve of this person. And so they said, that thing's off kilter. Now it's 4-2. This was a year ago. Instead of taking that issue up with the governor, with the Workers' Comp Administration, they're taking it out of the legislative process. So these bills coming through to correct the workers' comp system. We had a bill that said, if you get drunk while you're working, or you are using drugs, and you get hurt, the judge can decide to what extent you are impaired by drugs or alcohol, and they can reduce your workers' comp benefit. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? If you make the choice to impair your ability to do the job and you get hurt, why should you get full benefits? Because that workers' comp system, everybody pays into it to make sure our workers are taken care of. So you need to pay the price, right? You need to take responsibility for your actions. The union stood up and said, you know, we don't have a problem with the legislation, but we're unhappy with the governor's appointee a year ago, and therefore, we're standing in opposition to this legislation. Guess what happened to it? They voted it down. So if you are working with somebody that's impaired and you get hurt, you got a problem. And now we're in a state that continues to tell people, it's okay if you get drunk on the job or if you're using drugs, we'll take care of you. That's Big Brother stepping in, and that's that socialistic mindset that really doesn't work well. Unions collect dues, and like I said, I have no problem with people are members of unions, but you need to know where your dues are going. A lot of those dues are not going to benefit you. They are going to get those people elected that they want serving in the state legislature and in Washington, so that they can carry out the union mission. If that benefits you, you probably want to support it. If it doesn't, then you need to consider if paying those union dues is a good idea for you. Because I will tell you, in the union, they're not providing for your workers' compensation, They're not providing a lot of benefits they tell you they're providing. That goes back to the state. And everybody's paying into that system. So again, question where your union dues are going and if that's a good investment, because you're working for that money. Okay, I want you to watch a video, and let me tell you, this was created about 4 years ago, with clips from 4 years ago. You're going to see President Obama making a promise to you, and we're going to talk about did he keep it or not. You're going to see a federal representative, Maxine Waters, talking about socialism. Listen carefully to what she says. And then you're going to see an oil company executive talking about oil prices at the end. Pay very careful attention to what these people are saying in these video clips. Thank you. It's that video. The free enterprise video.
Oh, okay.
Under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket.
What guarantees are you going to give this liberal about how that will reduce the cost of gasoline at the pump if we let you drill where you say you want to drill?
I can guarantee to the American people, because of the inaction of the United States Congress ever increasing prices.
I don't think the government's doing its best. Why doesn't the president go there, nationalize an industry, and get the job done for the people?
And guess what this liberal will be all about? This liberal will be all about socializing, would be about basically taking over and the government running all of your companies.
The oil and gas industry has been demonized for too long. It is this industry that helps pay for our schools, fund our roads, and provide jobs for New Mexicans. We can produce our own energy here at home and fund projects that are vital to our everyday lives. We have learned that environmental protection and economic opportunity can go hand in hand. We can produce more energy while protecting the environment for future generations to come. We can provide better schools for our kids to compete in a global economy. The New Mexico Business Coalition will continue to support the oil, gas, and other industries in our state. We will fight for jobs and economic prosperity and help get our economy moving again. Join us. Together, we will move New Mexico in the right direction.
What do you think? Okay, so let's talk about electricity. In New Mexico and at the nation's capital, we spend a lot of time talking about renewable energy. That's a good thing, right? Who can tell me what is the cheapest form of electricity?
Coal fire.
You're good. Come get something. It's coal. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that solar energy is the cheapest because sunshine's free, right? It is very, very expensive to put together what it requires to collect that solar energy and turn it into electricity. The other problem with solar, we have not found an effective, cost-effective way of storing that energy. So at night, we're not producing the energy you need in your homes, right? And in your businesses. So we've got to have another form of energy. So when they keep pushing solar, that's fine during the day. We've still got to operate at night. I want to tell you, the other thing is wind. Wind, the prices have come down, but has anybody ever seen those towers? How big they are? They're huge. It's a lot of steel. It's expensive. The wind may be free, but harnessing that wind and turning it into electricity is not. So, at the beginning of the video, what we saw was Obama saying that he's promising you ever-increasing electricity prices. Has he kept his promise? Yes, he has. There's one for the president. He has kept his promise on that. You know, I'll tell you, I work a lot. One of the other hats I wear is working with utility companies, and I actually represent their shareholders in utility companies operating in the state. At the state level, we have passed mandates that they have to produce power by renewable sources. They've got to produce 20% of their power by 2020 with renewable sources. So they were putting up the wind farms and we were doing okay, it was expensive. And guess what, guys? Guess who pays for that? Every ratepayer, every consumer that gets electricity is going to pay more for that. Well, then the PRC, our Public Regulation Commission, said, oh, stop building wind. We're going to force you to do solar. Solar was really, really expensive. We just had a utility company in the southeast part of the state file a rate case in December asking for $23 per month increase in electric rates for the people they serve. Over half of that is because of renewables. So when he said it was going to skyrocket, he meant it. The other thing that he said that wasn't in this video, some of you may be aware, he said that, you know, if you want to build a coal-fired plant, you can do that, but it'll bankrupt your company. These utility companies that are burning coal are cheapest form of energy, and we've got an abundance of coal in our state. They can't build the plants. Why? They're concerned about pollution. You know what's happening though? China is starting about 8 new coal-fired plants per month. It doesn't matter if we shut down every coal-fired plant in the United States. We are not going to make up for the pollution that's coming out of China. Our plants are very clean in comparison. We have yet to find anybody that has died from energy produced at a coal-fired plant. You'll hear horror stories, but there is no known correlation between that. So coal on average is about 7% cheaper than gas and 9% cheaper than nuclear. Nuclear energy is a great source of energy. We get some energy from a plant in the north, well, it's in Arizona. We get some energy from that, but building the nuclear plant is extremely expensive. Now we're going to talk about freaking fracking. Who can tell me what hydraulic fracturing is? You ever heard of it? No? Have you heard of fracking? Right now, today, in Santa Fe, they're having a hearing on fracking. I waited until 8:30 Thursday night for this hearing. They moved it to Saturday. Why? They wanted more protesters to come in and shut down fracking in the state. So let's talk about fracking, because it's important. Some people want you to think that fracking is really dangerous and it's polluting your water. That's not true. But as they continue with this discussion, they've got a lot of people very, very upset. What does fracking mean to New Mexico?
Jobs.
Yeah, it means a lot of jobs. Do you know, in New Mexico, the oil and gas industry pumps about $2.1 billion into our economy on an annual basis. They are 25% of our general budget. 25%. If they went away, where would we be? We're not going to make it on minimum wage jobs, government jobs. It isn't going to happen. That industry is our lifeblood. 95% of their wells are fracked. So what does fracking mean? Let's take a look at that. What they do when they come into a well site, this is where they've drilled the well. And they go down, and then they're going to come across horizontally. And they've got to get to where those beds are. First thing to remember, they are thousands and thousands and thousands of feet below our water tables, okay? It's going to be very difficult for this material to get to our water tables, but we'll talk about that. So when they come down, that entire drill space is encased in steel and concrete. They bring it all the way over here. Now let's say that this is where the formation is they want to hit. They drill down, they'll put a plug in that hole. You see those arrows, it's kind of hard to see, and that's why I didn't even do the next one, but they'll come down, they'll put a plug in with some material in there with a small little explosion, and they'll pop it out. They create these little fissures, little tiny cracks. Those little cracks go into the rock formation, the sand formation, and it allows the gas to escape in the oil. And it'll come back into that pipe, and they will pump it up. That's fracturing. Now, the big fear is, oh my gosh, but if you do that, what are you putting in that? What's in there? What's in that explosive material that's coming out? 99.5% of the material they're using to frack is water and sand. Water and sand. 0.5% is chemicals. Oh my gosh, here's the big fear. What's in those chemicals? Well, in that 0.5% of chemicals, they're trying to look for something that's kind of a lubricant that will make that stuff move, make the sand and water go. It's material or a chemical that is found in ice cream, toothpaste, deodorant. Sometimes you find it in a household cleaner, and it varies by company on what they're using. I wouldn't necessarily suggest you want to drink it, but I don't think you're going to drop dead because it's many thousands of feet below your water table. So, in the fear, we've had studies. The other thing to keep in mind, guys, fracturing has been going on since the late 1940s. They'll tell you this is a brand new technology. They just came up with it to kill you and get in your water supply. It's not true. It's been going on for a really long time. Again, nobody's died from it. In 2010, 30 states got together to study fracturing and to find out if there were problems. They didn't find any problems. No drinking water contamination. In 2012, the University of Texas did a study. No evidence of aquifer contamination from hydraulic fracturing and no leakage. The chemicals are not leaking out. When they pull that stuff back up, the first stuff that comes out is going to be that water and sand with a little bit of chemical mixture. See that truck over there on the right? He's going to take that water, it goes into those tanks, which is number 5, and then it offloads into the truck, and they take it to a safe storage place. Has anybody seen the movie Gasland? Good for you. This is a really cool picture that came from Gasland, and that is somebody's water faucet in their kitchen, and they've held a match up to it or a lighter, and look at it. Pretty amazing. That's flame coming out of the water faucet. They're blaming that on hydraulic fracturing. Didn't happen. That happens. This is a true picture. There are actually flames. If you light that match right by that faucet, you're going to get this little explosion. But it didn't come from fracking. It came, this is methane that's in the water supply. It was in that water supply since long before they ever came in and drilled wells and did fracking in the area. Actual photo, but in Gasland they tell you it's because of fracking. Matt Damon, I guess, I haven't seen the movie either. Matt Damon's in the movie, and so everybody think, oh, gotta be true if Matt Damon's in there telling us it's true. Yeah, not so much. So a mother, somebody's mom, decided she wanted to find the truth, and she set out to do a movie called Truthland. And I just would suggest to you, if you're going to see Gasland, see Truthland. I believe in education on both sides of the issue. when she went in to find out, because she wanted to know, are my kids being poisoned by fracking? She didn't find that they were. Tell me something about SNAP. I've got the definition up there, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. What does that mean?
Not to do with food stamps, or you go to a place and they give you food. I'm not.
Yeah, the way that it works now is it's based on family income, and you get a card, and so you can go buy food, and it's based, so you have 4 people and you're making so much money, you get so much assistance, and it's a card, kind of like a credit card that you can use in the grocery stores. Good program, right? Because it's helping those that need help. And that's our responsibility. I'm not being facetious. I believe that. I believe we should help people that need help. Food stamp expense has doubled since 2008. And that's because we're allowing more people on the program. It's also because we have a problem managing the program. This is a little hard to see, but you can see New Mexico down there is the darkest. We're one of the highest use states in the nation. You know, about 50% of our population in New Mexico is living in poverty. What that says at the top is, are you selling food stamps? We have a real problem in New Mexico with fraud. It's a nationwide problem. Government won't let us stop it. That's the biggest issue. We've got Channel 4 did an investigation. In 2012, out of almost 39,000 cards issued to New Mexicans, more than 93,000 were replacement cards, about 70%. People saying they lost the card, so they have to get a replacement. Problem is, some of these people have lost them 4, 6, 8 times. Seriously? If you need to feed your family, aren't you going to take care of that card? There's nothing wrong if you need help, getting help. But if you're losing that card and going into replacement, there's probably something else going on, right? SNAP distributes about $56 million a month to 198,000 families, or about 442,000 individuals. Those cards,
$56 million or cards?
$56 million a month is the value. The cards are being sold for 50 cents on the dollar. It's real. Yesterday, I just moved into a new house and I had a landscaper working in my backyard. And I went out and I was talking to him and he told me, he's very young, he's got a family, and he said, I have no food in my refrigerator. I'm hoping I get paid today because I've got the kids this weekend. He's divorced. And he said, you know what frustrates me? I have a lot of friends. And he said, well, let me say I used to have a lot of friends that are getting food stamps, welfare assistance, other cash assistance. They're not working. He said, I get up at 4:30 in the morning to go to work, and I work long hours. He's been working in the snow, and in the summer he'll work in the heat. But his friends, who used to be his friends, get these cards for food, and they're selling them. He got so disgusted with that, he took them all out of his phone book in his phone. He said, if I can work, they can work. And he said, and if they need the help, they shouldn't be selling the card. It's a real problem. I want somebody that's a student to tell me, why is that a problem? Somebody that hasn't answered before. Why is it a problem if people are selling their food stamp card?
It just makes people more lazy and prone to just mooch off of other people. Just they get this food stamp and they just decide
Exactly. Come on up. He said that it makes people lazy, that they can get that and get cash for it when they sell it. Here's another problem. Who's paying for that? Your moms and dads, whoever's taking care of you, we're all paying into that system. Again, if they need the help, great, let's help them. But if they're selling it for cash, I got a problem with that. And one of these days, very soon, some of you are already working and paying taxes, some of you aren't. If you're not now, you will be. I doubt that you want to see your money going to that as well. Profit. This is not a four-letter word, guys. It's okay for a company to make a profit. We have adults in the room right now that own businesses. How many business owners are in the room right now? These people that you see raise their hand are creating jobs. Whether they're creating a job that you fill or somebody else fills, they're creating jobs, they're paying taxes, they're helping support the state. That money goes into our roads and everything that we need to have to function as society, which is a good thing. They have to make a profit. If they don't make a profit, are they going to stay in business? It's not enough for them to make the money just to pay their employees. When a company makes a profit, they're typically putting that money back into the business. They're buying new materials that they need, they're expanding it, maybe they're going to help create a new job. It's not a bad thing to be creating profit, and we should support that. We don't see enough support of businesses and profit in the state, and that is one of the problems. Very quickly, on the national debt. Where is it? Somebody tell me. In the back. 16 trillion. Very good. Come on in. 16.5 trillion. That is $52,000 per person. Everyone in this room. Every baby, every retiree would have to pay over $52,000 in order to pay off that debt. But we go back to socialism. Remember, if you're paying that amount and then you got a baby, they're not going to pay anything, right? So maybe you need to pay more to pay off that debt. Can you imagine right now you haven't even gotten fully into the workforce and that's the debt that's on your back? It's a little uncomfortable, isn't it? Welfare benefits, all cash assistance, is now paying about $30 an hour, $168 a day. When you're working, the median household income is about $25 a day, an hour, per day. It has now become more economically beneficial for people, some people, to not work than to work. But the value of working, you can do better than that. You can make more than that, and you can make your way in life. And I just want to encourage you. Don't be held back. Don't think minimum wage is your minimum or your maximum. Find something better. Get your education. Work hard. Make your way in life. There is more to life than government benefits. You need to be one of the producers in society, not one of the takers, because we're getting outnumbered. And I want to ask you, why do you think we're doing this today? Somebody tell me.
Young people on economics.
Yes, come on up. But the most important reason, you are our future. So make it good. Make tomorrow a brighter day than today. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being my future. I want all of you to know, I've got cards up here. Sign up for our emails. When we have an event with the New Mexico Business Coalition, you're invited to attend free of charge. You can also have honorary membership in our group. We want you involved. I absolutely love you, and I thank you for being here. Thanks.
6 leaders in the auditorium here wants to contribute some of their experience, feel free to have at it for a minute or two. Sharp?
Do you know the amount that oil and gas contributes to these kids' schools and other education programs in the state?
Yeah, her question was, how much does oil and gas contribute to education in the state? They're 25% of our budget, and education's about 50% of our budget. They are critical to what we're doing in this state. Right now, today, they've got that fracking bill going on. They've got bill after bill after bill to shut that industry down. Why do I care? Without them, we're in a world of hurt in this state. We should all be supporting them and thanking them for their contribution. They're not horrible people out to poison all of us. They're here making a lot of money for us.
Comparatively to the oil companies and natural gas companies' profits, how much of that do they give to education and things like that?
Well, again, their $2.1 billion goes into the economy just in their actual taxes and contributions to the whole tax picture. And our budget right now, Paul, is what, under $6 billion?
Well, the general fund is 6, but the aggregate is somewhere around 17, 18 when you include federal transfers.
Yeah, but for the state budget, they're about 40%, and they are the lion's share, probably 50% of education. Yes, ma'am.
Then why do our leaders not want us to use oil and gas? Why?
That's the question of the day. You know, we've got, with coal as well, we've got this great vein of coal in the northeast corner, right where our coal-fired plants are. So they literally dig the coal out and take it to the plant. They don't have to transport it. We just now are going through a process where they're going to shut down half of the plant, both the plants in New Mexico. One sits on the reservation, one sits on state land, and they're shutting down half of those plants, and now they're talking about exporting coal. We're exporting oil and gas. It's fine to be looking at renewable energy and other sources to power our homes and power our vehicles. That's great, but we're not there yet. And until we get there, we've got these natural resources. New Mexico should be one of the wealthiest states in the nation because of our natural resources. And where are we? We are #1 in poverty. We have this poverty mindset, and that is why our philosophy in the Business Coalition is we're not going to change that until we change some of these elected officials making decisions. You're not going to change their opinion. I've tried for 15 years. You are not going to convince these people that oil and gas is there for a reason and it's to be used, and that business is good. They're going to demonize oil and gas. They're going to demonize business. They need to go. We need to find somebody that believes in business and believes in economic prosperity. And so that's where we get involved. Voter education at the time of when you're going to go to the polls, we're putting out information so you can make an informed decision. We know an informed voter is more likely to vote, and they're more likely to make a better choice when they do, because they got the facts in front of them.
So we seem to be in a losing battle then, because from what I can tell, the elections are swinging more democratic and less business friendly, particularly in New Mexico. So how do we change that course of action over the next 10 years? Because you're right, we should be swimming in cash in this stage, yet we're shackled to the ground because we can't get at our natural resources. So what is that strategy to change the tide of New Mexico?
It's voter education. And let me tell you, we're nonpartisan, okay? I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. What I care about is, will you support business in the state? Because if you don't, we have a problem. So in 2009 is when I formed the Business Coalition. 2010 was our first election process where we did voter education. We did pretty well. Every race that we got involved in, we were 82% successful. Because what happens, guys, and I was there at one time, I was, before I got so involved in the political process, I'd get ready to vote, and I'd realize I didn't even know who the candidates were. I didn't know what they stood for. I don't believe in voting because they have a letter behind their name that says they're a D for Democrat or R for Republican. What I care about is what are they going to do for me and for you and for this state? That's why we formed this. So then we got involved in the election in this past time. The results weren't as good this time, but we, the Business Coalition, was still 82% successful. People are going to take this information, they're going to read it. We put out the facts, and we tell them where to check our facts. I don't ask them to take my word for it. I tell them exactly where to go, and I only use public information. It's just that the average voter doesn't have the time to dig into it the way that we do. And we do it because it needs to be done. And we don't pick races that we think we can win. We pick races because they need to be won. And we go after targeted individuals that continue to hold this state down. Government can't do it for you guys. You've got to do it for yourself. And you need to join us. Get involved with the Business Coalition. We've got a youth outreach, and I want you guys to get involved with us and help me do that. I'm a little bit older than you. I need the youth involved in creating this youth outreach. If you're interested, I want you to get my card and one of our things. Sign up, send me an email, call me. Let's get it going, because this is your state. This is your future. You're going to create what happens. I'm not. I'm here to help you every way I can, but you're coming up right behind me, and you've got to take the reins, and we've got to make this happen.
You're doing a fine job in New Mexico. I'm hoping there's business coalitions all across the United States, and particularly you talk about student education. We need congressional education. You know, your example of Maxine Waters here, just this week said, you know, this $85 billion, really $41 billion decrease in the rise of tax, is going to cost 170 million jobs in the United States. There's only one problem with that. There's only 155 million people working. This is the kind of idiocy we have in Washington, and they don't seem to take training very well.
And it starts at the state level. When you get people focused in the state and you start changing your state elected officials, you will see the change shift in Washington. It is a state-by-state endeavor. We've had people come and ask us if we could model ourselves in other states. I haven't finished in New Mexico yet. I've got a model that works, and yes, we're willing to share, but we are so overwhelmed with everything that's going on. We're lobbying in Santa Fe. I'm getting 3 to 5 phone calls a week asking me to please help with legislation, either to kill it or try to get it passed. Legislators that know I'm doing education, some of them don't like that, because they are going to be some of the people that we are educating about. You know what? I thought that they wouldn't talk to me. They're actually talking to me because they're real worried about what I'm going to do. They should be. And I don't care how much we have a conversation. What I care about is their vote. Either they're voting for business, and they're voting to create jobs for you guys, or they're not. If they're not, and we find a good candidate that's pro-business, they better watch out, because we're coming. And we're going to provide that education, and they're going to find a new job, because they're not helping us.
May I just add a comment that's away from the politics, but comparing the welfare recipients with workers. Walter Williams uses this term a lot. When you work, when you make money, everything you do is serving your fellow man. When you are not working and receiving money, it's taking away from your fellow man. That's another reason to be a worker.
And we're all going to reach that point. I mean, just natural life expectancy. I mean, at some point, those of us that are running businesses, we can't work forever. That's why we need you to come up behind us and be the business creator, be the business force, and understand the value of jobs in the state. Thank you guys very much. I'll be here for a little while.
Thank you, Carla, and I would definitely take her up on that to join the New Mexico Business Coalition. Free membership. There's a lot of movers and shakers in that group. You can definitely meet a lot of people. At this point, why don't we do a raffle? So if you can just give me this here, and my Where's my pink, where's my orange notebook? Anyone see an orange notebook anywhere? Jeez. Ben, where did that sucker go? Oh, man. I don't know. Anyone see an orange notebook anywhere? Well, I'm looking for that. Why don't we show one of the videos? Which one? Okay, this is a good video.
The history of the world. A huge fraction of the improvements in standard of living have come because private businesses have created new products, given people jobs, have generated profits that raise people out of poverty and allow them to live fruitful and productive lives with reasonable standards of living. We can have much more of that, and it will have beneficial effects around the world if we step back from the excessive regulation and have a much more capitalistic system. My name is Jeff Myron, and I'm Director of Undergraduate Studies in the Department of Economics at Harvard University. I want to talk about 3 myths about capitalism. The first is that being pro-capitalism is the same as being pro-business. Nothing could be farther from the truth. The point of capitalism is to make sure that businesses have to compete vigorously against each other, and that benefits consumers. It's not good for the businesses per se, because they have to work really hard. So many businesses understand this, and they hate capitalism. They're constantly trying to get government to erect various rules, restrictions, regulations that help them, but they're not in the interest of the consumers. So pro-capitalism is good for consumers. That's what we're ultimately trying to help. The second myth is that capitalism generates an unfair distribution of income. What true capitalism does is rewards people who are productive, people who work a lot of hours, people who have a lot of talent, people who come up with good ideas. They get big rewards under capitalism, and people who don't do those sorts of things get less. The one negative one might be concerned about is that some people have very little skill. They are not able to earn very much left on their own, and so very reasonable people support some anti-poverty spending. But that's completely different than interfering with capitalism, regulating prices, limiting quantities, imposing all sorts of things on businesses. Those make the economy less productive, give us a smaller pie, and make it even harder for us to operate programs which help those who are less fortunate because they're more lucky. The third myth is that capitalism was responsible for the recent financial crisis and the recession. That, again, is almost exactly the opposite of what is true. First of all, nobody who's being intellectually honest thinks that we had unbridled, serious capitalism before the crisis hit, before the subprime buildup occurred, before we had all the housing problem. We had enormous government interventions that subsidized risk, enormous government interventions that encouraged an overinvestment in housing. If one's going to try to draw any conclusion, it seems to suggest much more clearly that interfering with capitalism generates financial crises, generates recessions, because what we experienced was directly related to the incentives for excessive risk-taking, the incentives for overinvestment in housing that were created by government. The private sector responded to those incentives, so of course the private sector can't be completely absolved of being involved, but in the sense of causing with the bad policies that caused it, not what the private sector or capitalism did on its own. Most importantly, whenever government bail out people who took excessive risk, it encouraged people to do more of that in the future. And we unfortunately went a huge way in that direction by the TARP and by all the Federal Reserve policies, which helped Wall Street and risk takers not have to pay the true price for all the excessive risk taking they engaged in.
Okay, I found the notebook, and we're going to do some raffling here. The first one is a $20 gift certificate to Monroe's New Mexican Food. Is Rebecca here, Acosta? Rebecca Acosta? Maybe she just walked out. Marissa? Right on. Here you go. Here you go. I don't know if it's all right. And And let's auction off another one here. Turn on Rose. Clear? Clear, right on. $20 gift certificate for my Rose. Definitely, if you don't win a certificate, definitely make sure you patronize that fine institution that will be providing our lunch shortly before 12, so definitely stick around for that. Also, Dion's is helping us out, and the Route 66 Diner is providing cookies, not to be confused with the Route 66 Malt Shop, the Route 66 Diner, so definitely patronize all those great institutions. Since we got a little behind, I'm going to raffle off some movie tickets at this point. Try to catch up. Yeah?
Emphasize 66 Diner, since I was asked to say this, is not the 66 Malt Shop. Two different institutions. 66 Diner is paying the minimum wage, law and law, and his business has been hurt by the people thinking they're protesting the guy at 66 Malt Shop. And because people who think that way are feel-gooders, they just feel things, they feel that 66 Diner is a place to go protest. So please share that with your friends, that 66 Diner is a great place, and they have good malts too.
All right, thank you, Kathy. Here's a couple of movie tickets to the Cinemark. I believe each one of these is $7.50 per, so that's 2, and according to my calculations, that would be $15 of gift certificate to the Cinemark movies. Alex Rumblatt. And let's blow out another couple of the movie tickets here. Abigail Tucker. Okay, so without further ado, we'll do some more raffles after our next speaker and before lunch. Our next speaker is the busiest man in Albuquerque. I'm driving in at 7 in the morning, I hear him on the radio. Half the time I turn on that radio dial, this man is on the radio. Paul Gessing became the first full-time president of the Rio Grande Foundation in March of 2006. Since joining the foundation, Gessing has been a prominent voice for limited government and individual liberties in policy areas including constitutional liberties, taxes, healthcare, education, and transportation. Prior to joining the foundation, Gessing headed up the lobbying efforts of the National Taxpayers Union. He's published articles in the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, U.S. News and World Report, the Albuquerque Journal. I see him once a week. He's got an article in the Albuquerque Journal, so definitely check that out, and several other major publications. He writes for and appears regularly in media outlets around New Mexico. Paul has testified in Congress and before a variety of state and local bodies. I present to you Paul Gessing of the Rio Grande Foundation.
Guys, you've been very well behaved and very attentive. I'm going to start this off by taking a quick stretch break. So everybody get up. If you need to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. If you don't, just get up and kind of, I don't know, do a jumping jack, wave your arms, shake a little bit.
Thanks, man. Huh? Thank you for helping with that, because I don't know, I was looking at it. You got it, man.
Hey, General.
Come on, man.
Good, how are you?
Early morning on a Saturday.
We were able to get everything set up, which is good.
And this is a good time to mingle and meet new people, make new friends, and hopefully it'll work out. And,
Need a date? Sorry, I was in high school once.
Yeah, sorry to give you guys a break earlier. Just never had a complete run through of this, so
It's okay, Caleb. It's okay.
How'd it go this morning?
Good. It was a really good show. It really helped because the lady who was the third person was very knowledgeable healthcare. People were all interested in that. I knew the doctor and I knew the host, but I didn't know her.
Was it the doctor you guys had, the healthcare thing, the other RGM?
No.
Cardiologist?
That's Dr. Dean.
Okay.
Dr. Dean Waldman. He's my board member.
Okay.
Sorry to hijack things, but
Yeah, that's cool.
it was recommended.
Yeah, sure thing.
Sure. Okay. All right. All right.
We'll just come back at around 11 o'clock, so take another 10 minutes off. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to try to keep it simple.
No, I know, but I do that too.
Hey, Caleb. On this last video, summing up Ben Carson,
Yeah.
there's none of those lined up. And I've got time. I can just look it up.
Yeah, that
I want to replicate this around the stage. You're not you personally doing it. You're welcome to do whatever you want. I want to send
the idea, man. Get
people
everyone
to
doing it.
your direction as to how a little bit how to do it.
Yeah, that's the thing. So people are gonna have to need some work. That's the problem. You know, you get paid for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
I'll just look it up. It's no problem.
Yeah.
I'm just
It was on. Can you put in?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'll just
Yeah, put in that URL. Sorry about that.
No, it's cool. Good thing we have internet connection, otherwise we'd be out of luck. Medium.
She's a medium. Come on.
It's mine. It can't happen.
Give it to me.
Oh, yeah.
So who had the power strip? Was that Caleb?
Actually, Donald Luck had that. So.
Because I, what size?
Thank you for your help. Appreciate it. No, it was kind of off the cuff, so I appreciate it.
Uh-oh, party foul. So you go to Hillerman?
No, I go to Valley.
Okay.
I went to middle school.
Valley. I normally play hoops there on the weekends. With, Abe Lopez is the girls' JV coach. I might go to the double header tonight with the girls and boys varsity in the playoffs at Valley. And he's hardcore. He's sitting right here. I got my seat. I'm sticking with it. He hasn't budged. You probably didn't think you were setting up for Saturday mornings at 7:30 or whatever.
You know, I like being up. It's just the process of getting there. But it's nice. Once you're up, it's nice.
We normally play basketball at 8 a.m. And I played as early. I'm not kidding. I showed up. It's a lot of like guys my age, 30s. We play because basketball season. They use the gym.
Yeah.
We played at 6:30 a.m. I walked into the gym at 6:45, and there were 10 guys on the floor and like 2 guys waiting.
Yeah.
What is Johnson? You can't get into Johnson unless you're a student. I used to play at Johnson.
My mom.
It's a good place to play during the week. Right. Where's Taylor?
I think you know my mom.
That video was a little bit quiet. I don't know if
Oh, okay. Well, I listened to you on the radio.
Can't get enough.
It was a little well, there's only like 30 minutes.
Oh, it's really, yeah.
Mike is going to do a couple more about what happened. It's just over on the corner.
You know, I don't know. I knew that Jim Villanucci was on the way out because he kept on saying
My mom.
Your mom.
I don't know.
Because I brought it up 2 meetings ago.
Yeah, I think that's where it came. Like, want to go? And I was like, okay.
As a radio talk show host, he needed to decide socially.
Yeah, last month because he stayed late.
I didn't know.
Bryson diving.
Well, he's more a libertarian.
Changing the meeting, so
that's
supposed to be the
generally my preference. I
unless
don't
it's
know.
a basketball game or.
I really just didn't like his style as a host. I think he let his callers dominate the show. I think his callers had much audience. That was the thing that I thought Terry Q did really well. She had people on hold for 45 minutes, but she's got points that she wants people to make. You know, I'm glad to hear it because I want to make sure he gets things rolling again.
There's another thing. In Jim's personality, he may not have recognized Cumulus.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
For me, okay.
Just standing here.
Yeah, so my butt is still closed. I'm still not ready to build because I was sitting out there for a few years. Because there's a bunch of wolves in the rain. I was on a teenager and I was like, really, and I want to go outside. And I thought there'd be like some reason I could go outside. But there wasn't. I was going back in on my voice. So like having time. So I was like, oh, I was like, hi.
Did you get your little pocket constitution?